The Sith didn't just build temples, they built nightmares, and then buried them under entire civilizations. Today, I'm breaking down every single Sith temple and everything we know about what's inside, starting with one hiding in the last place you'd ever think to look, the Shrine in the Depths, Coruscant. Here's something that should keep you up at night. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the literal headquarters of the Jedi Order for thousands of years, was built directly on top of a Sith shrine, not near one, not in the same district, directly on top of it. This shrine dates back roughly 5,000 years before Episode 1, a dark side nexus so powerful it warped the force around it for millennia, sitting right under the Council's feet the entire time. But here's where it gets weird. The Jedi didn't stumble across this shrine and leave it alone. They conquered it, burned it down, and then made a very deliberate decision. Instead of destroying it completely, they built their temple directly on top of it. The idea was that thousands of Jedi meditating above it would neutralize the dark side energy seeping up from below, which is, a bold strategy. It didn't work. The dark side energy never stopped leaking. Over thousands of years, it clouded the Jedi's ability to sense the Force clearly. Palpatine knew about this and exploited it, using the shrine's residual power to blind the Jedi while he orchestrated the Clone Wars right under their noses. They thought they were containing it. Turns out it was containing them, but at least this shrine was subtle about it. The next temple on our list was actively used for something much worse. The Temple of Sacrifice, Yavin 4. The Rebel Alliance, the scrappy underdogs fighting for freedom and democracy, ran their entire operation out of a building designed for blood sacrifices, and nobody thought to mention it. The Massassi Temple on Yavin 4 was constructed roughly 5,000 years before Luke Skywalker ever set foot on it. Nagasato's Sith followers built the thing to honor Sith deities, complete with chamber systems specifically designed for dark side rituals and ceremonial killings. We're talking purpose-built sacrifice rooms, dedicated spaces where people were drained of life to fuel ancient Sith magic, and the rebellion used those rooms as barracks. Generals slept in them. Pilots ate lunch in them. The entire plan to destroy the Death Star was formulated in a room where people were ritually murdered for thousands of years. Hey, where should we put the tactical hollow table? How about the blood altar chamber? It's got great acoustics. Here's where it gets interesting though. Fans have debated for years whether the temple's residual dark side energy subtly influenced rebellion strategy, whether their increasingly desperate high casualty tactics were nudged along by something ancient and invisible. It's probably nothing. Probably. The bigger question is why Palpatine, a man obsessed with Sith history, never once thought to weaponize the fact that his enemies were literally camping inside a Sith holy site. That feels like a missed opportunity on a galactic scale. But at least the rebels only had to deal with bad vibes. The temple buried under Malastare had something far worse growing inside it, the Sith Temple on Malastare. Most people think of Malastare as the pod racing planet with the funny-looking dugs, but buried beneath its surface was one of the most terrifying creatures the Republic ever encountered, and the way they handled it might be worse than the creature itself. The Zillo Beast was an ancient species native to Malastare, thought to be completely extinct for centuries. Then the Republic dropped an electroproton bomb during a battle with the Separatists. The blast cracked open the planet's crust and outcrawled the last known Zillo Beast. Very much alive, very much angry, which is, not ideal. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. This thing was nearly indestructible, lightsaber-resistant scales, practically immune to conventional weapons. Palpatine personally ordered it captured and transported to Coruscant for study, because of course he did. He wanted its scales reverse-engineered into armor. The beast promptly broke free, rampaged across the capital, and made a direct line for Palpatine himself, almost like it could sense what he really was. The community is still fighting about this one. Some fans argue the Zillo Beast was force-sensitive enough to detect Palpatine's dark side nature. Others think it was just a massive predator going after the nearest threat. But the real question nobody wants to sit with is this. Palpatine ordered the creature killed and then immediately commissioned cloning research on it. The last of its kind, and his first instinct was to make more that he could control. Cool. That's a fun thought to have permanently. But if a weaponized extinction event is unsettling, wait until you hear about the temple they used as a prison for their own people. The Malachor Temple. The Sith are a culture that celebrates murder, torture, and betrayal as legitimate career advancement strategies. Killing your master is literally how you get promoted. So what kind of place do you have to be for the Sith to look at it and go, yeah, nobody should ever go there again? That's Malachor. Thousands of years before the Galactic Civil War, the Sith constructed a massive temple deep beneath Malakor's surface. But this wasn't just a training ground. It was a super weapon. The temple housed a giant Sith holocron at its peak, capable of destroying all life on the planet's surface, which is a terrifying concept when you remember these are people who can already crush organs with their minds. The Jedi Order made Malachor off-limits, and even the Sith treated it as a graveyard. The surface was littered with the petrified remains of thousands of combatants, Sith and Jedi alike, frozen mid-battle by the super weapon's activation during an ancient conflict. They built a doomsday device that went off and turned everyone, including their own people, into statues. When Ezra, Kanan, and Ahsoka finally explored the temple, they found those petrified warriors still standing exactly where they fell, thousands of years old, still locked in combat poses. And here's the part that keeps fans up at night. The temple was still functional. Maul knew it. He'd been waiting for someone force-sensitive enough to help him turn it back on, fully operational, just sitting there waiting for someone to accidentally flip the switch. But if a forgotten Sith super weapon gives you the creeps, wait until you hear about a temple that the Empire literally built a war machine on top of without even realizing it. The Temple of Pomojima, Mimban, is one of those planets where everything is already miserable before you add ancient Force mysteries to the mix. It's a swamp world, perpetually raining, and the Empire decided it was the perfect place to strip mine for minerals and energy resources. So they sent thousands of workers and soldiers into the mud and the dark and told them to dig. What most Imperials didn't care about was that the planet had a deep connection to the Force, including an ancient temple called the Temple of Pomojima. The Empire built an entire military and mining operation on this world, just stomped right over whatever was already there, treated the whole planet like a resource deposit with legs, which is, not ideal. Here's where it gets interesting. The Temple of Pomojima housed the Kyber Crystal, a Force relic that could amplify a user's connection to the Force by an absurd degree. Luke Skywalker and Leia actually ended up on Mimban and fought Darth Vader inside the temple itself. The crystal was so powerful, it let a barely trained Luke hold his own against Vader in lightsaber combat. The real question fans keep circling back to is why the Empire didn't secure the crystal themselves. They had a full military presence on the planet. Vader himself ended up there. The fact that a relic that powerful was just sitting in a temple on a world the Empire already occupied and nobody thought to grab it first is either a massive oversight or proof that the bureaucracy was even worse than we thought. But if Mimban's Forgotten Force relic sounds bad, wait until you hear what the Sith left behind on Jabiim. The Jabiim Temple. Some Sith temples are built to last forever. This one was built on a planet that didn't want it there, and that's way more unsettling. Jabiim is, put simply, one of the most miserable planets in the galaxy. Constant rain, endless mud, and ground so unstable that entire settlements just sink into the earth without warning. It's the kind of place where nature actively rejects anything you try to build, which makes it a strange choice for anyone to establish a presence, let alone the Sith. But here's where it gets complicated. During the Clone Wars, Jabiim became a brutal war zone. Republic forces fought a devastating campaign on the surface, and Anakin Skywalker's task force was nearly wiped out entirely. The planet was so strategically cursed that the Republic essentially abandoned it, leaving its people to fend for themselves, which, not ideal, but beneath all that mud and misery, Jabiim held older secrets. The planet's deep cavern networks and unstable geology made it a natural hiding spot for things that weren't supposed to be found. Sith artifacts and remnants of dark side activity had a way of surfacing on worlds like this, buried under layers of geological chaos where nobody sane would bother digging. The real question nobody can answer is what's still down there. Jabiim's surface literally swallows structures whole. Entire battlefields from the Clone Wars disappeared into the mud within years. Anything hidden underground before that, anything ancient, anything deliberately buried, could still be sitting in the dark under kilometers of wet rock, waiting for the ground to shift just right. But if a planet that swallows its own secrets sounds paranoid, wait until you hear what the Sith built on Arcanis. Palace of the Woolamander. The Palace of the Woolamander is one of those Sith temples that sounds almost goofy at first, and then gets way darker the more you look at it. Buried in the jungles of Yavin 4, southeast of the Great Temple, this place was originally a Massassi structure built in 3997 BBY under Exar Kun, who wanted even more Sith monuments to feed and amplify his power. So despite the weirdly playful name, this was not some harmless jungle ruin. It was part of the same dark machinery that made Yavin 4 one of the most infamous Sith worlds in Star Wars history. And the reason it matters is because this temple was hiding something genuinely horrific: the Golden Globe, a device that imprisoned the souls of Massassi children inside a sealed chamber. That detail alone turns the Palace of the Woolamander from obscure old ruin into deeply cursed Sith nightmare. Centuries later, the Jedi Master Ikrit found the globe, realized he could not free the trapped souls on his own, and literally put himself into a force trance to wait for someone who could. That is such a perfectly Star Wars kind of haunting image, an ancient Jedi silently waiting in the ruins of a Sith temple for the right moment to finally undo a crime that had been festering there for ages. What makes the palace even cooler is how it keeps changing roles across history. By the Galactic Civil War, it had decayed into a crumbling ruin and got its name from the Woolamanders living inside it, after a Sullustan explorer was basically chased off by the creatures. Later, there were even reports of rebel affiliates using the ruins as a base on Yavin 4. Then, in 22 ABY, Anakin Solo and Tahiri Vela finally uncovered the truth of the place, returned to it, and broke the curse, freeing the trapped Massassi souls at last. So the Palace of the Woolamander is this really fascinating mix of Sith temple, forgotten jungle ruin, accidental animal sanctuary, rebel hideout, and finally a place of long overdue release. But if the palace proved the Sith could mix souls with the Force, what happened on its surface proved what it costs when someone does something far worse. The Kesh Scythe Temple. The Kesh Sith Temple, in Legends, feels less like a simple Sith shrine and more like an entire civilization trying to convince itself it was still destined for greatness. Sitting high in the Takara Mountains on Kesh, it was built around the crash-landed Sith dreadnought Omen, and over time, it became this huge, multi-level mountain fortress with terraces, towers, a giant courtyard, living quarters, training spaces, Uvak stables, and even a planetarium lined with lignan crystals. So right away, this place has a different energy from a lot of Sith temples. It is not just a dark side relic. It is the headquarters, palace, and spiritual center of the lost tribe of Sith, all fused into one. And honestly, that is what makes it so cool. The Kesh Sith Temple is basically Sith history in one location, grand, paranoid, and absolutely soaked in betrayal. This was the site of the Red Sith Purge, where the tribe turned on its own and the dead were displayed in the courtyard while survivors were thrown from the cliffs. It was also the stage for the collapse of Yaru Corsin's family, with Sela and Jariad launching a coup, Nida crushing it, and Sela ultimately being left there in exile. After all of that, the temple stopped feeling like a glorious holy site and started feeling like a cursed monument to everything rotten at the center of Sith rule. It was sealed off and treated as forbidden ground for the next 2,000 years. What really pushes it into Great Sith Temple territory, though, is that it does not stay dead history. When the Lost Tribe fell into chaos during the time of the Rot, Varner Hiltz reopened the temple, uncovered the hidden map room beneath the Omen, and used that discovery to reunite the Sith around a new purpose. By 41 ABY, the temple was active again as a center for Sith training, with figures like Vistarakai training there, and it became one of the key launch points for the tribe's return to the wider galaxy. So the Kesh Sith Temple is not just where the Lost Tribe lived, it is where they were built, where they broke, and where they decided they were going to matter again. But if a temple that was the home to the extermination of a tribe wasn't enough, wait until you see what Vader built himself on Mustafar, because that fortress wasn't just a home. Fortress Vader, Mustafar. There's something deeply poetic about Darth Vader building his castle on the planet where Anakin Skywalker died, and by poetic, I mean profoundly unhinged. Mustafar is where he lost his limbs, lost Padme, lost everything that made him human. So naturally, he looked at that hellscape and said, yeah, this is where I want my bedroom. Fortress Vader was constructed between 19 and 18 BBY, barely a year after the Empire rose to power, an obsidian monolith rising directly out of active lava flows, with 8-meter reinforced blast walls and tractor beam generators built into the structure. The whole thing looks like a gothic nightmare someone designed specifically to say, do not visit me. But here's the thing, it wasn't just intimidation architecture. Every element of Fortress Vader was engineered as a dark side amplifier. The black obsidian construction, the lava foundation beneath it, the internal geometry of the chambers themselves. All of it calibrated to intensify force abilities for one specific user. This wasn't a base of operations. It was a weapon platform built around a single man. At the center sat Vader's inner sanctum, which held a medical pod that sustained his broken body between missions. Half meditation chamber, half life support system. He'd float in Bacta, surrounded by volcanic rock and dark side energy, healing just enough to go destroy something else. Whether that's a temple or a prison depends entirely on your perspective. And the fan community has been arguing about that distinction for years, because the real question isn't what Fortress Vader was, it's who controlled it. Did Vader build himself an autonomous power base, or did Palpatine let his apprentice construct an elaborate cage he could monitor from Coruscant? A castle on the planet where you lost everything, gifted to you by the man who made you lose it. That's not a reward, that's a reminder. But if Vader's fortress channeled the dark side for one user, the temples on Moraband channeled it for an entire civilization. The Temple of Moraband. Moraband is the Sith homeworld. That's not a title it earned through conquest or some dramatic power play. It's where the Sith literally started. And the temple complex sitting on its surface is ancient beyond easy measurement, one of the oldest known Sith sites in the entire galaxy. For millennia, this place served as sacred ground for the Sith Order. Think of it less like a base of operations and more like a cathedral built on top of a graveyard. The Valley of the Dark Lords housed the tombs of powerful Sith, which is already a weird energy for a place people kept voluntarily visiting. Welcome to the pilgrimage. Don't touch anything. Don't listen to the whispers. Moving on. But the tombs aren't even the interesting part. The dark side energy concentrated on Moraband was so dense that the dead didn't stay quiet. Yoda visited during the Clone Wars and encountered visions, illusions, and the lingering presence of ancient Sith spirits actively trying to corrupt him. The planet didn't just store dark side history, it was still radiating it, thousands of years after the Sith abandoned the surface. That's not a ruin, that's a battery. Here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. Palpatine's resurrection didn't come from Moraband, it came from Exegol, where the Sith Eternal Cult spent decades engineering his return through cloning, dark side rituals, and sheer fanatical devotion. But the foundational obsession with cheating death, that tradition stretches all the way back to worlds like Moraband. Palpatine didn't invent the idea. He inherited it from a lineage of Sith who spent centuries trying to beat the one opponent nobody could lightsaber their way past. Nobody knows the full extent of what Moraband's legacy seeded across the galaxy. Ancient tombs, millennia of accumulated tradition, and we've only seen fragments of what that knowledge eventually enabled. But if Moraband's ancient legacy could help inspire a resurrection across the entire galaxy, wait until you hear what was hiding in a valley literally named for the Sith, the Valley of the Scythe Temple. The Sith Academy on Korriban is basically the platonic ideal of a Sith temple. It is not just some spooky ruin with a dark backstory. It is the place where generations of Sith were trained, rebuilt, abandoned, and rebuilt again across multiple eras, starting in 3996 BBY under Exar Kun's followers. It sat in the Valley of the Dark Lords, surrounded by ancient tombs, and its whole purpose was to turn Force sensitives into Sith while also digging through old tombs and relics for even more forbidden knowledge. So right away, this place feels less like a temple in the religious sense, and more like a factory for manufacturing evil. What makes the Academy especially great for a video like this is how brutally Sith it is in practice. Getting in was awful, staying in was worse, and the whole system was built around fear, backstabbing, and survival. Prospective students either had to impress someone important enough to sponsor them, or just murder another student and take their medallion. Once inside, they were thrown into deadly competition where many of them straight up died trying to rise through the ranks. The Academy even kept prisoners around for torture and combat practice, which really tells you everything you need to know about the difference between a Jedi school and a Sith one. This was education, technically, but it was education run like a meat grinder. And the reason the Korriban Academy feels so iconic is because it never belongs to just one Sith era. Revan and Malak used it. Mitra Surik later found it half dead and automated, crawling with assassins. The revived Sith Empire rebuilt it into a full pyramid fortress again and trained hundreds more Sith there, and the Brotherhood of Darkness later reopened it too, with Darth Bane among its students. That gives the place this incredible feeling of continuity, like no matter how many times the Sith collapse, they keep crawling back to Korriban and rebuilding the same nightmare school all over again. So if you wanted one location that sums up the Sith as a civilization, obsessed with power, obsessed with ancient lore, and absolutely incapable of learning from their own disasters, the Sith Academy is probably the best example in all of Legends. Speaking of hidden worlds that nobody was supposed to find, let's talk about the one Palpatine turned into his personal doomsday bunker, the Temple of Exegol. Every other temple on this list had limits. A super weapon here, a tomb there, maybe a bioweapon lab if the Sith were feeling ambitious. Exegol didn't have limits. Exegol was the limit. Hidden in the unknown regions on a planet so hostile that navigating to it required a literal Sith wayfinder, this wasn't just Palpatine's backup plan, it was his backup civilization. During the reign of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor modernized ancient Sith shipyards and facilities on Exegol, turning something already terrifying into something that makes Fortress Vader look like a vacation home. The temple housed the Sith Eternal, an entire cult of dark side worshippers who were bred, engineered, and sustained indefinitely for one purpose: keeping the Sith alive no matter what. And when I say factory, I mean factory. Cloning research facilities powered by a dark side nexus churned out bodies for Palpatine to inhabit. Darkside practitioners were mass-produced like droids off an assembly line. The temple didn't preserve Sith tradition, it mechanized it. But here's where it gets genuinely apocalyptic. Underneath all of that, Exegol contained a fleet of approximately 14,000 Ziston-class Star Destroyers, each one equipped with planet-killing super laser technology. 14,000 Death Stars, basically, just sitting in a cave waiting for the signal. That's not a military strategy, that's a doomsday cult's insurance policy. If I can't rule the galaxy, nobody gets to have it. The community has strong opinions about this one. The construction timeline alone raises questions. Who built 14,000 Star Destroyers in secret? Where did the materials come from? How did nobody notice? These are valid concerns that still fuel debate about whether Exegol represents the ultimate expression of Sith philosophy or a desperate lore-breaking perversion of it. Either way, the galaxy came closer to total extinction here than anywhere else on this list. And that's not an exaggeration, that's just math. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.